The rain lashed against the windows of the penthouse office atop Carter Tower, a sentinel of glass and steel piercing the moody Chicago sky on that October night. Ethan Carter, a titan of the tech world at 32, watched the city lights bleed into the wet streets below. His family's inheritance spun into a sprawling digital empire that did little to quiet the persistent ache of loneliness he'd carried for years. His reflection, sharp and imposing, stared back, the chiseled features, the dark hair styled with practiced ease, the bespoke Italian suit that screamed success. Forbes had splashed his face on their cover last month, heralding him as one of the most influential entrepreneurs under 40, yet his green eyes, a legacy from his late mother, held a deep-seated melancholy no fortune could touch. His phone buzzed, the third time in 5 minutes, a relentless stream of messages about the billion-dollar merger that would soon see Carter Tech conquer the Asian market, a move poised to triple the company's value. Ethan straightened his tie, the time glowing 7:45 p.m. on his watch. His dinner with the Japanese investors at the Grand Ballroom was scheduled for 8:30. In a break from his usual routine, he dismissed his driver, deciding the walk would do him good. Something in the biting night air beckoned him, a need to clear the fog of financial projections from his mind. He shrugged on his black overcoat, the private elevator whispering him down to the street level, where the light drizzle cast an ethereal sheen on the city. Pulling the collar of his coat up against the wind that whipped between the skyscrapers, his footsteps were a solitary rhythm on the slick sidewalk, his mind a whirlwind of market strategies and spreadsheets. That's when a flicker of movement snagged his attention. 2 small figures huddled near the entrance of a Walgreens half a block away. He slowed, his curiosity piqued. They were girls, identical, no older than 5, their coats far too thin for the raw Chicago cold, their small bodies trembling visibly. Instinctively, Ethan stopped. What were 2 children this young doing out alone at this hour? He scanned the nearly deserted street for a guardian, but the rain had driven everyone else indoors. "Are you lost?" he asked, his voice soft, approaching with a caution meant to disarm. The twins exchanged a look, a silent telepathic conversation passing between them. They had enormous, expressive eyes, framed by brown curls escaping from faded beanies. The one clutching a small bundle stepped forward, her sister hanging back, a tiny protector. Could you buy this?" Her voice was a fragile whisper, trembling as much as the small hands extending a package wrapped in a worn-out blue scarf. Ethan knelt, bringing himself to their level, ignoring the dampness seeping into the knees of his expensive suit. Up close, he could see the dusting of freckles across their noses, the slight purple tinge to their lips from the cold. "Why are you trying to sell something so late at night?" The girl in the back answered, her voice laced with an urgency that pierced Ethan's guarded heart. "Our mom needs medicine. She's really sick, but we don't have enough money." "We Lily and Chloe," the first girl continued, her fingers carefully unwrapping the scarf. "This necklace is special. Mom said it's worth a lot." Time seemed to warp, to slow to a crawl as the object came into view. Ethan's heart stuttered, then began to pound a frantic rhythm against his ribs. His fingers, usually rock-steady even in the most high-stakes negotiations, trembled as he reached for the crescent moon-shaped pendant. It was a masterpiece of old-world craftsmanship, tiny, aged silver stars dancing around the moon, a single midnight blue sapphire nestled at its center, capturing and fracturing the city's lights. But it wasn't the artistry that made his blood run cold. It was the tiny, almost invisible marking on the side of the pendant, a signature he knew as intimately as his own. Where did you get this?" His voice was a ragged, strangled thing. "It was our mom's. She always wears." "Wore it," Lily corrected herself, tears welling in her large eyes. But now she needs medicine more than the necklace. Ethan cradled the object with a reverence he hadn't felt in years, his mind a maelstrom of questions and impossible possibilities. That necklace. How many nights had he spent sketching designs, searching for the right artisan, choosing the perfect stone? Destiny, it seemed, had a twisted sense of humor, delivering this piece of his past back to him in the hands of two desperate children. "Where is your mother?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm, trying to mask the storm raging inside him. The girls looked at each other again, suspicion clouding their young faces. Chloe squeezed her sister's hand. "We can't tell strangers," Lily said, her voice small but resolute. "We just want to sell the necklace to buy the medicine." Ethan took a deep, calming breath, forcing logic to cut through the emotion. These girls needed help. He needed answers. But first, he had to earn their trust. "I understand your concern," he said, keeping his tone soft. "Here's what we'll do. I'll buy the necklace and pay much more than you need for the medicine. But I'd really like to help your mother, too." "Why?" Chloe asked, her eyes narrowing with a wariness that didn't belong on a child's face. "Why do you want to help?" Ethan's gaze fell to the necklace in his hand, the weight of a decade of memories pressing down on him. How could he possibly explain something he barely understood himself to two small children? "Because this necklace, it has a very special story, and if it belongs to your mother, then she is also very special." He paused, choosing his words with care. "Sometimes life gives us a second chance to do the right thing." I think this is one of those moments. The twins held another of their silent conferences, a mute dialogue that was clearly second nature to them. Finally, Lily extended a small, cold hand toward him. "Mom is really sick," she said, her voice wavering. "Do you promise you'll help Ethan?" Nodded, the weight of the promise settling heavily on him. "Yes, I promise." As he followed the twin girls through the rainy Chicago night, his dinner with the investors, a forgotten detail, Ethan tried to quell the whirlwind in his chest. The necklace in his coat pocket seemed to burn, a tangible link to a past he thought was buried forever. The drizzle continued its relentless patter, but he barely felt it. His entire world had tilted on its axis the moment he saw that moon-shaped pendant, and as he watched the two small figures leading him through the wet streets, he knew with absolute certainty that his life was about to be irrevocably changed. While he followed the twins through the streets of Chicago, Ethan felt the weight of the necklace in the pocket of his overcoat, a physical anchor pulling him back through time. The memories he'd worked so hard to wall off began to flood back, transporting him 10 years into the past, to the ivy-covered halls of Northwestern University. Sarah Miller was impossible to miss, not for any conventional beauty, though she had it in spades with her unruly brown curls and honey-colored eyes, but for the kinetic, contagious energy that seemed to radiate from her. Ethan had met her on the first day of their business administration course when she literally crashed into him in the library, sending a teetering stack of economics textbooks cascading to the floor. "Sorry, sorry," she'd kept repeating, her cheeks flushed as she scrambled to gather the books. "I think I need glasses, or maybe I just need to learn how to walk and carry books at the same time." Ethan couldn't suppress a smile as he helped her, and that was the beginning of an improbable friendship. The reserved heir to the Carter empire and the vibrant scholarship student who juggled classes with a part-time job at the campus cafe. The memories flowed freely now, as sharp and vivid as if they had happened yesterday. The marathon study sessions in the library where Sarah would insist on smuggling in thermoses of coffee. The fiery debates over economic theories, where she always offered a perspective that had never occurred to him. The lunches at a tiny Mexican place off campus, where she finally convinced him to try something spicy. "You need to live a little eth," she used to say, using the nickname only she was ever allowed. There's a whole world out there beyond the walls of Carter Industries. Sarah was a breath of fresh air in his rarefied world. While others saw the Carter heir, she saw just Ethan. She never shied away from disagreeing with him, from challenging his assumptions, from pushing him to question the rigid truths he'd been raised on. "You know what your problem is," she'd said once, during a heated discussion about the future of business. "You think too much about numbers and not enough about people. A company isn't just about spreadsheets, it's about dreams, stories, lives." It was during their junior year that Ethan realized his feelings for Sarah had deepened into something more. It wasn't a sudden epiphany, but a slow, inevitable sunrise. It was in the small things, the way his heart hammered in his chest when she smiled at him, the way he found himself scanning every room for her, the way any time spent away from her felt like a waste. The idea for the necklace was born during one of those late-night library talks. Sarah had been speaking about her fascination with astronomy, a passion she pursued in her spare time. "There's something magical about the moon," she'd mused, gazing out the library window at the night sky. "It's like it holds all the secrets of the universe." Ethan had spent weeks secretly researching, finding the perfect artisan, an old-world Italian jeweler named Joe Sullivan, tucked away in Chicago's Little Italy, renowned for his unique, handcrafted pieces. The man worked for 2 months on the design, painstakingly crafting every detail of the crescent moon pendant, adding the tiny silver stars, and selecting the perfect sapphire to evoke the night sky. The night he gave it to her was etched forever in his memory. It was mid-December, and a soft snow was blanketing the campus. He'd taken her to the rooftop of the astronomy building, her favorite spot. It's perfect," she'd whispered, tears shining in her eyes as her fingers traced the pendant's shape. "No one has ever given me something so meaningful." They had shared their first kiss that night, under a canopy of winter stars. The weeks that followed were the happiest of Ethan's life. Sarah brought color and chaos and laughter into his meticulously ordered world. She showed him perspectives he'd never considered and made him feel like more than just a name on a building. But the fairy tale was short-lived. His father fell gravely ill at the start of their final semester, and suddenly Ethan was torn between the hospital and the crushing weight of his responsibilities at the company. Sarah tried to be his anchor, but he began to pull away, shutting her out. "You don't have to carry the world alone," she would plead, but he was deaf to her words, the pressure mounting with each passing day. The company's board was watching, questioning his readiness. His family expected him to be the stoic, unshakable heir. Late-night study sessions were replaced by endless board meetings. Casual lunches gave way to tense business dinners. Sarah tried to understand, to adapt, but Ethan was changing, becoming colder, more distant. The arguments started, small at first, then escalating into painful clashes. "You're losing yourself," she'd said during their last terrible fight. "You're becoming exactly what you always said you didn't want to be." "You don't understand," he'd shot back, his voice harsh with stress and grief. "I have responsibilities. I can't just live in a dream world like you do." The words hung in the air, a cruel final blow. He watched as the light in her eyes extinguished. She was silent for a long moment, tears tracing silent paths down her cheeks. Then she slowly unclasped the necklace and placed it on the table between them. "No, Eth, you're the one who doesn't understand, and when you finally do it, might be too late." That was the last time he ever saw her. She didn't show up for graduation. Mutual friends said she'd taken a job in another city, but no one knew where. Ethan had thrown himself into his work, transforming Carter Industries into a global behemoth, trying to fill the cavernous void she had left with the cold comfort of success. A small cough jolted Ethan back to the present. Lily had stopped and was looking up at him with concern. "Are you okay? You look sad." Ethan forced a smile, quickening his pace to catch up with the girls. "I'm fine, just thinking." His hand instinctively went to his pocket, touching the cool metal of the necklace. "Is it far from here?" No, Chloe replied, pointing towards a weathered brick building a few blocks ahead. "We live there." Ethan looked at the building, his heart pounding a frantic tattoo against his ribs. After 10 years, would he finally understand? And was it, as she had predicted, far too late? Apartment 3B in the old building in Wicker Park held stories its worn walls could barely contain. It was a small 480-square-foot refuge that Sarah Miller had transformed into a home for her twin daughters, Lily and Chloe, over the last 5 years. The modest space housed not only a family, but also dreams, struggles, and the surprising strength that only a mother's love can create. Sarah discovered she was pregnant 2 weeks after leaving the university, alone in a new city, with no close family, and only her meager savings from her scholarship. She faced the news of twins with a mixture of terror and fierce determination. Her first impulse was to find a stable job, but the high-risk pregnancy forced her to pivot. Those were months of gnawing uncertainty. On sleepless nights, Sarah devoted herself to learning programming through free online courses, her fingers flying across the keyboard while her daughters grew inside her, each line of code a promise of a better future. Between HTML tutorials and graphic design studies, she built not just a new career, but a fortress to protect her girls. The twins were born on a bright spring morning, bringing a revolution to Sarah's life. Lily arrived first, her honey-colored eyes a perfect match for her mother's, followed by Chloe 3 minutes later. They were fighters from the start, overcoming the complications of a premature birth with the same tenacity their mother showed every single day. The first year was a blur. Sarah worked as a freelance graphic designer in the snatched moments between feedings and diaper changes. Her old laptop was a permanent fixture on the kitchen table, allowing her to toggle between comforting a crying baby and finalizing a project for a client. Nights were a grueling cycle of infant cries and looming deadlines, fueled by strong coffee and sheer willpower. Gradually, a routine took shape. Sarah cultivated a base of loyal clients who valued her meticulous design work. In her spare time, she continued to study programming, adding new skills that allowed her to take on more complex and better-paying projects. Money was always tight, but she learned to make every dollar stretch. The apartment, though small, became a vibrant space of learning and creativity. The living room served as her office by day and a study area by night. An improvised bookshelf made of painted crates held a mix of textbooks and children's stories, many scavenged from used bookstores and garage sales. On one wall, a sprawling photo board documented every milestone: first tooth, first steps, first day of school. Lily and Chloe grew up witnessing their mother's unyielding dedication. From a young age, they learned the value of hard work and perseverance. While other kids begged for expensive toys, they were content to create their own worlds out of cardboard boxes and old sheets, inventing epic adventures in their small living room. At the local public school, Lincoln Elementary, the twins stood out not just for their striking resemblance, but for their sharp intellect and boundless curiosity. Lily, the dreamer, spent hours in the library, devouring books on science and astronomy. Chloe, practical like the father she never knew, showed a natural aptitude for numbers and strategy. Sarah juggled her finances with meticulous care. Rent consumed the largest portion of her income, but she refused to move to a cheaper, more distant neighborhood. The girls' school was too good to give up. Every month was a masterclass in budgeting, essential bills first, then school supplies, always ensuring there was healthy food on the table, and any tiny remainder went into a small emergency fund. The moon and star necklace was her only indulgence, the one tangible piece of her past she had kept. Sometimes, on the rare nights when the girls were asleep and her work was done, she would hold it up to the light, letting the memories wash over her. They weren't tears of regret that streamed down her face, but of gratitude for the two perfect lives that love had given her. The pneumonia began insidiously, a persistent cough she dismissed as a symptom of the dry winter air and accumulated exhaustion. But as the weeks wore on, the symptoms worsened. A low-grade fever began to visit her at night, and the fatigue deepened into a bone-deep weariness. Sarah tried to shield her daughters from the severity of her condition, but Lily and Chloe were too perceptive. They saw the way their mother had to pause to catch her breath, the growing pallor of her skin, the way her coughing fits became more frequent and painful. Basic medications quickly depleted the emergency fund. With no health insurance and her ability to work intensely compromised, Sarah watched her savings evaporate. Projects began to slip, A few clients moved on, and for the first time in 5 years, she felt a paralyzing sense of dread. It was on one of those feverish nights, terrified by their mother's condition, that Lily and Chloe overheard her muttering in her sleep about the necklace, about how that one piece of jewelry could solve their problems. The girls exchanged one of their silent twin-to-twin conversations and made a decision. On that cold October night, while Sarah slept fitfully, her daughters slipped out on a desperate mission. The moon and star necklace, treasured for so many years as a precious memento, now represented their only hope of saving their mother. Lily and Chloe knew they were breaking a cardinal rule, never go out alone, but their love for their mother was greater than any fear. What they couldn't know as they navigated the wet streets of Chicago was that the necklace carried not only monetary value, but the weight of an unfinished love story, a story that was about to find its next chapter. Ethan couldn't sleep that night. The encounter with the twins had stirred not just old memories, but an urgent, clawing need to understand what had happened in the intervening years. By 4 a.m, he was back in his office at the top of Carter Tower, the moon and star necklace sitting on his polished desk as his fingers flew across the keyboard. His vast resources now focused on a single, personal mission. The first call was placed as the sun began to streak the Chicago sky. Ashley Davis, his hyper-efficient personal assistant for the past 5 years, answered on the first ring, long accustomed to his unusual hours. "I need you to verify something with absolute discretion," Ethan instructed, his voice tight with tension. "Search for any records of a Sarah Miller in the city. Focus on freelance work in graphic design and programming. She probably has had 2 addresses over the past 5 years, the current one in Wicker Park." While Ashley initiated her search, Ethan stared at the necklace, each tiny detail a spark igniting a memory from Northwestern. How had Sarah managed to remain a ghost for so long in a city where his influence was so pervasive? The first pieces of the puzzle began to arrive that same morning. Ashley was, as always, ruthlessly efficient. Sarah Miller, 32 years old, works freelance for 3 major design agencies and maintains a private client base for programming projects. "I found regular payment records up until 3 months ago when they started to drop significantly," Ashley's report continued, each detail painting a clearer, more heartbreaking picture. The twins Lily and Chloe Miller attend Lincoln Elementary School. Excellent grades, participation in special programs for gifted students. Several commendations from teachers in their records. They take part in free extracurricular activities like the school choir and chess club. John Miller, his head of security, and a former private investigator, provided more granular details about the family's daily life. The building is old but well-maintained. Within its limitations, the landlady, Mrs. Rodriguez, speaks very highly of them. Sarah always prioritizes the rent. Even if she sometimes has to pay in installments, the apartment is small but organized. The photos John showed him revealed a modest but respectable neighborhood. The brick building, the corner pharmacy, the small park where the girls often played. It was a world away from the gilded cage where Ethan lived. The pharmacist, Mr. Johnson, confirms that Sarah's been buying antibiotics and fever reducers with increasing frequency, John went on. The last time, about 2 weeks ago, she couldn't buy all the medication she needed due to lack of money. The medical situation, pieced together from municipal ER records, was alarming. Sarah had been admitted 3 times in the past month with symptoms of severe pneumonia. On her last visit, doctors had recommended hospitalization, but she had refused, citing a lack of proper health insurance. She worked extra shifts at a local cafe on weekends, John added, at least until she got too sick to continue the girls' stay with a neighbor, Mrs. Lee. During those hours throughout the day, every new piece of information helped Ethan understand the life Sarah had so painstakingly built. She maintained a professional blog showcasing her design portfolio, participated in programming forums under a pseudonym, and occasionally sold digital art on online platforms. The neighborhood was a tight-knit community that had embraced her family. The owner of the local grocery store told John how the twins always helped organize shelves in exchange for fresh fruit. The building's doorman mentioned how Sarah always found time to help him with his smartphone issues, even when she was visibly exhausted. The twins' school records were a testament to their intelligence and their mother's dedication. Lily excelled in science and literature, while Chloe displayed a remarkable talent for math and logic. Their teachers consistently noted Sarah's commitment to their education, attending every parent-teacher conference and school event, even if it meant rearranging her work schedule. Sarah had established a meticulous routine to maximize her time and resources. She worked remotely to be there when the girls came home from school. She prepared all their meals from scratch, carefully planning each grocery trip to take advantage of sales and avoid waste. The girls' clothes, always clean and well cared for, were often sourced from thrift stores or swapped with other families in the neighborhood. As evening fell, Ethan had a complete, searingly clear picture of Sarah's and her daughter's lives. It was a story of resilience, love, and immense sacrifice. Sarah had forged a decent, loving life for her daughters, keeping them well-educated and happy despite her limited means. The pneumonia, however, had shattered this carefully constructed balance. Unable to work at her full capacity, her finances had collapsed. The medical records pointed to an antibiotic-resistant infection requiring specialized, expensive treatment. Ethan watched the sun dip below the Chicago skyline, the necklace on his desk still reflecting the last golden rays. Sarah was sick, fighting for breath in a tiny apartment, while her daughters tried to save her in the only way they knew how. Night fell again over Chicago, bringing with it a drizzle that echoed the previous evening. Ethan remained in his office, absorbing every detail he had uncovered, each piece of information a puzzle piece forming the image of the last 10 years. Years in which Sarah had quietly proven to be stronger and more resilient than he could have ever imagined. The park near Lincoln Elementary School was nearly empty on that crisp fall afternoon. Ethan watched from his car as Lily and Chloe emerged from the school, their colorful backpacks a stark contrast to their simple, well-worn uniforms. There was something hypnotic in the way they moved together, a perfect synchronicity that went beyond genetics. Steeling himself, he got out of the car. The girls recognized him instantly, hesitating for a moment before cautiously approaching. Mr. Carter Lilly greeted him, her voice polite but wary. Chloe stood slightly behind her, her observant eyes taking in his every move. "You can call me Ethan," he replied softly. "I brought something for you." He held out a pharmacy bag. "These are the medicines your mom needs." The pharmacist explained how they should be used. The twins exchanged one of their silent glances. Chloe took the bag, her small hands inspecting the contents with a maturity that belied her age. "Why are you helping us?" she asked, her tone a direct mix of suspicion and curiosity. Ethan paused, considering his answer carefully. "Because sometimes people need help, and when we can help, we should." He sat on a nearby bench, and after a moment's hesitation, the girls joined him, one on each side. "And because your mother, she was very important to me." Once Lily, who had been watching a flock of pigeons, turned her full attention back to him. "You met her in college, didn't you? What was she like?" The question caught him off guard. "Your mother is the most determined person I've ever met," he began, a faint smile touching his lips. "She always saw the best in people and never gave up on her dreams." "She still is," Chloe interrupted, a note of fierce pride in her voice. "Even when she's really tired, she always helps us with our homework and tells us bedtime stories. She makes up a new one. Every night," Lily added, "even when she has a fever." A knot tightened in Ethan's chest. "What's your favorite story?" The question visibly brightened their faces. "The one about the girl who became an astronaut," they answered in perfect unison, giggling at their synchronicity. "Mom says we can be anything we want," Lily explained, her eyes shining. "I want to be a scientist and discover new planets, and I want to create computer games," Chloe added. "Mom's teaching me a bit of programming." Ethan watched their faces light up as they spoke of their dreams, a mirror of the same passion Sarah used to have. "Do you like school?" "Yes," Lily answered excitedly. "We're studying the solar system in science. Did you know Jupiter has 79 moons, and I won last week's chess tournament?" Chloe added, a small, proud smile gracing her lips. The conversation flowed easily after that. The girls alternated between sharing stories about school and asking questions about what their mother was like in college. Ethan learned that Lily shared her mother's love for books, while Chloe had inherited his own innate ability with numbers. Time slipped by unnoticed until the sky began to bleed into dusk. "Mrs. Lee must be worried," Lily said, referring to the neighbor who watched them after school. Ethan nodded and stood up. "Can I walk you home?" During the short walk to their building, the girls' chatter continued, their initial wariness replaced by a comfortable familiarity. They told him about the neighbor's cat, about helping Mrs. Lee water her plants, about the drawings they made to cheer up their mom. At the entrance to their building, Ethan knelt to meet their gaze. "Can I visit you again tomorrow? Maybe we can do homework together in the park." The girls held another silent conference before Lily replied, "Yes, you can, but you have to promise to tell us more stories about Mom in college, I promise." He smiled, feeling an emotion he couldn't quite place stirring within him. Watching them bound up the stairs, Ethan realized something profound had shifted inside him. It wasn't just guilt or a sense of duty driving him anymore. It was a genuine, growing connection to these two small, remarkable people who, unknowingly, carried so much of him inside them. In the days that followed, a new routine was established. Ethan would meet them after school, always bringing the necessary medicine, but also small surprises. A book on constellations for Lily, a complex logic puzzle for Chloe, fresh fruit he'd accidentally overpurchased. He learned that Lily bit her lip when she was concentrating, just as Sarah used to. He discovered that Chloe, for all her seriousness, possessed the same sharp, dry wit he'd had as a boy. He marveled at how their distinct personalities complemented each other perfectly. Lily the dreamer, Chloe the pragmatist. One particularly pleasant afternoon, while helping Lily with a project on planets and Chloe with a tricky set of math problems, Ethan realized he was no longer just fulfilling an obligation. He was building something real, something precious and fragile, a bond that transcended blood. The girls, in turn, began to open up, sharing their worries about their mother's health, their small daily triumphs, their fears and their hopes. Ethan became more than just a visitor. He became a safe harbor, someone who listened. "You know," Lily said one day as they shared a snack in the park, "Mom seems better since she started taking these new medicines. She even managed to work a bit yesterday." Olivia added, her normally serious face softened by a smile. "The original text has a mistake here. It should be Chloe. I will correct this to maintain consistency with the new character set." And she didn't need the inhaler even once, Chloe added, her normally serious face softened by a smile. Ethan felt a warmth spread through his chest. His actions were making a tangible difference. It wasn't just about the medicine or the financial support. It was about presence, about showing that someone cared. The transformation in his own life was equally profound. The high-stakes meetings and billion-dollar mergers that once consumed his every thought now seemed distant, their importance diminished. His world, once measured in profit margins and market share, was now marked by shy smiles, curious questions, and shared discoveries. With each encounter, each conversation, Ethan felt himself reconnecting not only to the twins, but to the part of himself he had lost so long ago, the part that Sarah had always been able to see, even when he couldn't. Ethan stood before the door of apartment 3B, his heart hammering against his ribs. The hallway was quiet, save for the distant murmur of a television from a neighboring unit. The necklace in his pocket felt impossibly heavy. He took a fortifying breath and knocked. Soft footsteps approached, followed by the click of a deadbolt. The door swung open, and there she was. Sarah looked thinner than he remembered, her pale skin accentuating the familiar spray of freckles across her nose. Her brown curls were pulled back in a messy bun, and dark circles under her eyes spoke of deep exhaustion. But they were still the same honey-colored eyes, still holding that same fierce determination. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice thick with shock and emotion, her eyes instantly filling with tears. "Sarah," he responded softly. "May I come in?" She nodded, wordlessly opening the door wider. A racking cough shook her frame as she stepped aside, and Ethan's hand shot out to steady her arm. The apartment was quiet, the twins still at school. Afternoon light streamed through the living room window, illuminating the gallery of photos on the wall, photos he now knew from his investigation, but seeing them now, with Sarah standing right there, gave them a new, profound meaning. "You found my little girl," she said, her voice low as she sank onto the small sofa. There was no accusation in her tone, only a deep, weary emotion. Ethan nodded, taking a seat beside her. He pulled the necklace from his pocket and placed it gently on the coffee table. Sarah's gaze fell upon it, a sad, knowing smile playing on her lips. "They are extraordinary, Sarah," he said, his voice sincere. "So smart, so special they really are, aren't they?" she replied, her eyes shining with pride through her tears. "Lily has this dreamy side always lost in her books and stars, and Chloe, she's so focused, so driven. Why didn't you keep in touch, Sarah?" he asked gently. "We were such good friends." She took a deep breath, wiping away a tear. "Life went on. You know, you were building your empire, I was building my family. Then time passed and it got harder to reconnect." "I'm sorry," Ethan said, his voice heavy with a decade of regret. "I'm sorry I pulled away, that I lost so much time with our friendship." Sarah surprised him by taking his hand. "You're here now, and seeing how the girls talk about you, how their eyes light up when they mention meeting you at the park, maybe it's the right moment to rebuild our friendship?" "They told you about our meetings?" Ethan asked, a small smile touching his lips. Sarah's smile was genuine this time. "Of course they did. Lily won't stop talking about the astronomy books, and Chloe. Well, she tried to hide her excitement, but I saw her practicing those logic puzzles you gave her over and over." Another coughing fit seized her, and Ethan quickly passed her the glass of water from the side table. As he watched her drink, he noted that even in sickness, there was an undeniable, serene strength about her. "How are you really doing?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "Better," she answered. "The medicine you've been sending makes a big difference. Thank you for that, Ethan, for taking care of us." "I want to be around Sarah," he said gently. "If you'll let me. Your girls are special, and you've always been a very dear friend to me." Sarah squeezed his hand lightly. "You know what Lily told me yesterday? She finally gets why I always say the stars are magical, because you explained the constellations in a way that made sense to her." "What about Chloe?" Ethan asked, a smile forming. "She said you're acceptable as a math teacher." Sarah laughed softly. Coming from her, that's practically a statement of admiration. They shared a moment of easy laughter, some of the tension that had hung between them dissipating. "We'll have a lot to talk about," Sarah said after a moment. "About lost time, about rebuilding our friendship?" "I have all the time in the world," Ethan replied, "and all the patience needed." Sarah looked at the necklace on the table. "They sold this to help me. You know, my last reminder of those simpler times, and it brought me back to you," Ethan added. "Maybe it's a sign that some circles need to close for new ones to begin." Sarah nodded, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of hope and raw emotion. "The girls will be home from school in an hour. Would you like to stay for a snack? Lily made cookies yesterday, and Chloe will pretend not to be happy you're here, but she'll sit right next to you anyway." Ethan felt his heart swell at the invitation. "There's nothing in the world I'd like more." The late afternoon sun continued its slow descent, its golden light now illuminating not just the photos on the wall, but two old friends rediscovering their connection, laying the foundation for a new beginning. a beginning that came with two little girls who brought more light and meaning into their lives than they could ever know. The late afternoon sun was already setting when Ethan took the necklace out of his pocket. The midnight blue sapphire glowed softly, catching the last golden rays entering the small apartment. "Your little girls tried to sell this to me," he said quietly, extending the necklace to Sarah. Sarah took it with trembling hands, tears welling in her eyes. For a long moment, she simply watched the crescent moon pendant sway gently, the small silver stars reflecting the light. "I can't believe they took the necklace," Sarah murmured, more to herself than to Ethan. "But I understand why they did it. It seems to have a very special meaning," Ethan commented, noticing her emotion. Sarah smiled, wiping away a tear. "This necklace has such a beautiful story and such a sad one at the same time." She paused, her fingers tracing the outline of the pendant. "It was a gift from my grandmother." Ethan settled on the sofa, sensing he was about to hear something important. "My grandmother, Grandma Rose, was an extraordinary woman," Sarah began, her face softening at the memory. "She came from Italy when she was young, bringing only a few family jewels and a lot of dreams. This necklace was her most treasured piece, specially made for her by a famous jeweler in Florence." Sarah held the necklace up to the light, showing its details. "See these tiny markings here? They're the artisan's signature Joe Sullivan was known for, hiding his mark in details only the most observant would notice. It's an impressive piece of work," Ethan said, admiring the delicate engravings. Grandma's story was that Joe was inspired by an old Italian legend about a princess who loved the stars so much that the moon decided to gift her a piece of the night sky. Sarah smiled at the recollection. "The sapphire was chosen especially because under certain light it looks like it holds entire galaxies within it." She turned the pendant, revealing an inscription on the back. It says, "For the one who sees the magic in the stars." That was Grandma's favorite phrase. "Grandma always said the necklace had magical powers," Sarah went on, her voice tight with emotion, "that it protected dreamers and kept the deepest wishes of the heart. When I was little, I'd sit on her lap while she told me fantastic stories about constellations and shooting stars." Ethan noticed how her eyes sparkled when she spoke. "And you passed these stories on to your daughters, yes, but over time we created our own stories too. Lily and Chloe grew up hearing tales about this necklace for them. Each star on the crescent moon represents a wish or a dream to be fulfilled." Sarah stood, walking to a small shelf where a photo album lay. She opened it to a specific page showing an old photograph. "This is my grandmother Rose wearing the necklace on my 10th birthday. That's when she promised it would be mine one day." The photo showed an elegant older woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, the necklace gleaming around her neck exactly as it did now. "She gave me the necklace on my high school graduation day," Sarah continued, her voice warm with the memory. "She said it was time for it to go to someone who still had many dreams ahead." 3 months later, she passed away. Ethan watched as silent tears traced paths down Sarah's face. "Since then, this necklace has been my connection to her, my source of strength in the hardest moments when I felt alone or scared. Especially after the girls were born, I'd hold it and could almost hear her voice telling me everything would be all right." Sarah sat back down, adjusting the necklace in her hands with great care. "On the nights when the twins were babies and I could barely sleep with worry, I made up stories about the necklace to soothe them. The crescent moon became a magic spaceship. The stars were maps to hidden treasures, and the sapphire. Though the sapphire was a window to other worlds, they must love those stories," Ethan remarked, enchanted by the richness of this family tradition. "They do Lily, especially. She inherited my love of astronomy and her great-grandmother's imagination. Sometimes on clear nights we sit by the bedroom window and use the sapphire's reflection to discover new constellations. Olivia pretends she's too grown up for these stories, but she always ends up joining us." Sarah paused, her expression growing more serious. "Over the past few months, when my illness got worse and money grew scarce, I found myself clutching this necklace and asking Grandma Rose for strength. It was like she was still here guiding me. "It must have been hard for the girls to see you sick," Ethan commented softly. "They're so strong, Ethan, so brave." Sarah wiped more tears. "Now I understand why they took the necklace in their minds. If this object is so special, so magical, then it could help Mom get better." She smiled through her tears. "It's funny how fate works, isn't it? This necklace, and which represents so many generations of strong women in my family, ended up bringing you back into our lives as a friend." Sarah stood again, walking to a small decorated chest in the corner of the room. From inside, she took out a faded blue velvet box. This was the necklace's original box, she explained, opening it carefully. Grandma also kept some old photos of Florence here, along with letters from Joe Sullivan, explaining the meaning of each detail of the piece. Delicately, she placed the necklace back where it belonged. Each star was positioned to exactly reproduce the constellation Cassiopeia, the Queen of the Stars. Joe believed this constellation represented feminine strength, the royalty within every woman who dares to dream. The sun had now completely set, but the sapphire in the necklace still shimmered in the twilight as though it held its own light. Ethan could understand why the twins believed there was magic in that piece. It wasn't just a necklace. It was a legacy of dreams, stories, and love passed down through generations. "You know," Sarah said, closing the box carefully. "Grandma always said some things in life are meant to stay with us, no matter what happens. I think she was right. This necklace always finds a way to protect our family, even in unexpected ways." Ethan watched Sarah put the box back into the chest with reverence, finally understanding the true value of that object. It wasn't just a necklace with a rare sapphire or a marvelous piece of craftsmanship. It was a symbol of love, strength, and hope that had guided generations of dreamers. Silence hovered in the room after Sarah put the necklace away, the fading afternoon light casting long shadows across the small apartment. Ethan studied her for a moment, noticing how she fought to stifle another cough, how each breath seemed to be a conscious effort. The deep circles under her eyes told a story of sleepless, pain-filled nights. "Sarah," he began softly, "we need to talk about your health." She turned toward him, a flicker of apprehension crossing her face. The fatigue was etched in every line of her expression, in the way her shoulders seemed to carry an invisible, crushing weight. "Ethan," her voice was a hoarse, hesitant whisper. "Please hear me out," he interrupted gently. "You're sick. This pneumonia isn't simple, and the medicine you're on is obviously not enough. I can see how each breath is a struggle, how you fight to stay energized even for a short conversation." Sarah sank back onto the couch, her fingers fiddling nervously with the hem of her blouse. "I am getting treatment," she protested weakly. "I just need time to save up for the more expensive meds in a few months here, when I get more projects, sir." "How long will that take?" Ethan asked, his voice firm but kind. "How much worse do you have to get before you accept help? How long do your daughters have to keep watching their mother struggle to breathe?" His words landed with the force of a physical blow. Her eyes filled with tears she fought to hold back. "You don't understand. I've always handled everything alone. I've always managed, and you did an incredible job," Ethan reassured her, moving to sit beside her. "But this is different. This illness is consuming you, and you need specialized help." A violent coughing fit racked her body. Ethan quickly grabbed the glass of water, supporting her as she gasped for air. When she finally calmed, she was paler than before. "I'm going to find the best specialist in the city," Ethan declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Someone who can do a complete evaluation, prescribe the right treatment. We can't wait any longer." "Sarah, Ethan, you don't have to do this," she protested, though her voice trembled. "Specialists are expensive, and I'm not asking you to pay," he interrupted gently. "I'm not doing this out of pity or obligation. I'm doing it because I care about you, because those two amazing girls need their mother healthy." Sarah pushed herself to her feet, walking to the window. The setting sun cast long, golden shadows on her tense profile. You don't understand. I spent these past years proving I could do everything alone, that I could raise my daughters, keep our dignity. And you succeeded, Ethan replied, his voice soft. Look around you, Sarah. Your daughters are incredible, smart, polite, full of dreams. That's your doing. But now you need to think about them, about letting them keep the mom they love so much. The soft sound of laughter drifted from the girls' room. Lily and Chloe had just returned from school, bringing their vibrant energy into the quiet apartment. The sound seemed to strike a deep chord in Sarah. I'm so scared, Ethan, she confessed in a whisper. Every day it gets harder to breathe, harder to work. Sometimes I wake up at night gasping for air, and all I can think about is the girls, how they'd cope if we won't let it get to that point, Ethan stated firmly. Tomorrow, I'll start looking for the best pulmonologist in the city, someone who can really figure out what's going on and how to treat it properly. Sarah sat down again, visibly drained. And then what when I get better and the bills start piling up? Specialized treatments, exams, medications, one step at a time, Ethan responded gently. Right now, the priority is to start the right treatment. We'll figure out the rest together. Why are you doing this? Sarah asked, her eyes locking with his. Because when I needed it, you were there, he replied with raw honesty. When I was just the arrogant heir to Carter Industries, you showed me what true friendship was now. It's my turn to repay that. Another coughing fit interrupted their conversation. When it passed, she looked even more fragile. All right, she finally said, her voice barely a whisper. But under one condition. What condition? I have to do something in return, she insisted, a flash of her old fire in her eyes. I can't just accept all of this without contributing in some way. My work as a designer? Ethan smiled, having anticipated exactly this. Actually, Carter Industries urgently needs a redesign for our tech division, and I know a very talented designer who'd be perfect for the job. Sarah offered the first genuine smile of the night. Still the negotiator. Always the friend, he corrected gently. And there's one more thing. Sarah raised an eyebrow. The girls, Ethan continued carefully. They're brilliant, Sarah. They deserve every opportunity. Let me help with their education, too. For a moment, Sarah looked ready to protest again, but the sound of laughter from the other room seemed to change her mind. One step at a time, she said at last. Let's start with the treatment, and then we can talk about everything else. Ethan nodded, satisfied. It was a start. Tomorrow I'll begin searching for the specialist, he promised. We'll get through this together. Sarah, you're not alone in this fight anymore. The last vestiges of daylight faded from the Chicago skyline, and a crescent moon began its ascent. Ethan watched its silvery light filter through the window, a faint echo of the sapphire's glow in the necklace that had reconnected their lives. In that moment, listening to the twins' laughter and seeing the first spark of hope return to Sarah's eyes, Ethan knew he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Some people enter our lives by chance and become essential. Sarah and the twins had become his chosen family, and he would do whatever it took to help them heal. Dr. Emily Wilson's office was located in one of Chicago's premier medical centers. A Harvard graduate with further training in London and Tokyo, she had a reputation for tackling the most complex cases of pneumonia. Ethan had spent 3 days pulling strings and calling in favors to find her, and another 2 to persuade her team to take on a new patient on such short notice. The initial exams are worrisome, Dr. Wilson explained, her sharp eyes studying Sarah's X-rays. The infection has spread significantly due to lack of proper treatment. She paused, noticing Sarah's anxious expression. But it's still at a treatable stage. The treatment protocol began immediately. Next-generation antibiotics, respiratory therapy sessions, and rigorous follow-ups. In the first few weeks, Sarah had to go to the hospital daily for intravenous medication. Lily and Chloe watched these developments with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Having only ever known their mother as a pillar of strength, it was hard to witness her vulnerability. But Ethan was a constant, steadying presence, establishing a new routine that helped them all cope. "Are we going to study in the park today?" Lily asked one afternoon, her eyes bright with anticipation. It had become her favorite homework spot since Ethan started helping. Actually, Ethan smiled. "I thought we could take our books to the hospital so we can study and keep your mom company during treatment." The girls embraced the idea. Soon, the hospital's sterile infusion room became their makeshift study hall. Sarah would watch with tears in her eyes as Lily read aloud about constellations and Chloe worked through complex math problems, frequently pausing to show her their progress. After a month of intensive treatment, the results were palpable. The coughing subsided significantly, and Sarah found it easier to breathe. The pallor in her cheeks was gradually replaced by a healthy flush. "The antibiotics are working better than expected," Dr. Wilson noted during a follow-up. "You're responding excellently to the treatment." At home, the changes were just as profound. The apartment, once hushed by Sarah's illness, regained its vitality. The sound of their mother's laughter, a sound the twins had almost forgotten, began to fill the small space again. Sarah also started to gradually resume her work. The redesign project for Carter Industries became her focus, and she found an unexpected joy in every new creation. "It's like my creativity came back along with my health," she told Ethan, showing him the first sketches for the new logo. The twins blossomed as their mother recovered. Lily, the dreamer, started a healing diary, a collection of small daily victories she observed in Sarah. Chloe, ever the pragmatist, created a spreadsheet to track the medication schedule and doctor's appointments. "Mom smiled 12 times today," Lily announced proudly one evening, consulting her diary. "That's 3 times more than last week, and she didn't need the inhaler even once," Chloe added, meticulously checking off an item on her spreadsheet. The impact on their school life was also remarkable. Freed from the constant heavy weight of worry, they could focus better on their studies. Their teachers noted the positive shift. "Lily is more engaged in class," her science teacher remarked. And Chloe, "Well, she's always been excellent, but now there's a lightness about her we hadn't seen before." The afternoons in the park became a cherished tradition. Ethan brought books and educational games, turning learning into an adventure. Lily's passion for astronomy intensified when he brought a small, powerful telescope. Chloe, in turn, was thrilled with the logic puzzles he sourced specifically for her. Sarah watched these interactions with a heart full of gratitude. Seeing her daughters smile so freely, unburdened by worry, was the most potent medicine of all. "I'll never be able to thank you enough," she told Ethan one afternoon as they watched the girls play. "There's no need to thank me," he answered simply. "Seeing the 3 of you happy and healthy is all that matters." 2 months into her treatment, Dr. Wilson delivered even better news. "The infection is practically under control," she announced, showing Sarah the new, clearer X-rays. "We can start reducing the frequency of your visits." To celebrate, Ethan organized a small picnic in the park. Lily brought her healing diary to read the highlights, while Chloe had prepared a PowerPoint presentation with colorful graphs illustrating their mother's progress. "Look at you," Sarah laughed, pulling her daughters into a tight hug. "My little scientists." The sun set over the Chicago skyline, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Ethan watched the scene, his heart full. The transformation wasn't just physical. It was a profound shift in their family dynamic, a renewed hope that now permeated their lives. Lily and Chloe were carefree children again, free to dream and to grow. Sarah was reclaiming not just her health, but her creativity and zest for life. And Ethan had discovered a new definition of family, one built not on blood ties, but on the daily choices of love, care, and support. It was a peaceful autumn night. The twins were asleep, and Sarah and Ethan were on the apartment's small balcony, 2 cups of steaming tea resting between them. The city lights twinkled below, a vast carpet of light under a star-dusted sky. "Remember the first time we met in the library?" Sarah asked softly, a playful smile on her lips. "You looked so lost among those stacks of economics books," Ethan chuckled quietly. "How could I forget you literally tripped over my books, then insisted on helping me reorganize them? Even though I said everything was under control?" "Under control." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Eth, you had 3 different books open on the same page, trying to understand monetary theory. You obviously needed help." Hearing her use the old nickname sent a wave of warmth through him. Only Sarah had ever called him that, and hearing it again after so many years felt like coming home. "You were always good at seeing through people," Ethan admitted, sipping his tea. "While everyone else saw me as the Carter heir, you just saw a lost student needing help." Sarah shifted, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Though she was much better, the crisp night air still held a chill. "You know what I noticed that day? How you color-coded your Post-it notes, blue for questions, yellow for important concepts, pink for review, and green for my explanations." Ethan finished, a small smile on his face, "because you said green represented growth and learning." They fell into a comfortable silence, lost in shared memories. "Why did we drift apart, Eth?" Sarah finally asked, her voice tinged with an old, lingering sadness. "We were so close, so life happened," he answered after a moment. "I was so focused on proving myself to my father, to the company board, I lost myself in that need to be perfect, to never fail." "You started skipping our study sessions," Sarah recalled. "First it was important meetings, then business dinners, and you kept leaving green Post-its on my library desk," Ethan said with a sad smile. Even when I stopped showing up, Sarah took another sip of tea, her gaze drifting over the illuminated city. "You know what I miss most from that time? Our talks about the future, how we'd spend hours planning, dreaming. You wanted to revolutionize graphic design," Ethan recalled. "Create something that blended art and technology in a way no one had done before. And you wanted to be more than just your father's son." Sarah finished softly. "You wanted to make a difference, to use the company's resources for something bigger." Ethan was silent for a moment, absorbing her words. "I think we got lost in different ways. I lost myself in the legacy I had to carry. And you, I lost myself while finding my own path," she said. "Getting pregnant with the twins changed everything. Suddenly all those big plans were replaced by more immediate concerns: where to live, how to pay the bills, how to raise 2 children on my own. That must have been scary," Ethan commented softly. Sarah nodded. "It was, but it was also liberating in a way. For the first time, my choices weren't about impressing anyone or proving something. They were about survival, about love." A soft murmur came from the girl's bedroom, Lily talking in her sleep. Sarah smiled tenderly at the sound. "They're the best thing I've ever done," she said with quiet pride. "Even during the hardest times, I never doubted that you did an amazing job with them," Ethan affirmed. Their intelligent kind, resilient, just like their mother Sarah, blushed faintly at the compliment. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd kept in touch, if our friendship had survived those years." "I wonder that too," Ethan admitted, especially now seeing how the girls light up when they talk about astronomy or math. "It reminds me so much of our old library discussions. Lily has your insatiable curiosity." Sarah smiled. "And Chloe?" "Well, she inherited your obsession with organization. I caught her the other day, organizing her books by color and theme." They both laughed, the sound a soft, comforting echo in the night. "You know what's funny?" Sarah continued. "Through all these years, whenever I faced a really tough challenge, I'd find myself thinking, what would Eth say about this? You had that unique way of turning problems into opportunities. And I, Ethan, confessed, whenever I had to make an important decision, I remembered how you made me question everything. Think beyond the obvious, but why your favorite question?" Sarah laughed. "Still is. Sometimes it drives the girls crazy, but that's what makes them such good critical thinkers," Ethan observed. "They don't accept simple answers. They want to understand the why, the how. Just like we did, Sarah finished softly. Another comfortable silence descended, the city's distant hum, the only soundtrack. "I'm sorry," Ethan finally said, "for letting our friendship fade like that, for being so focused on becoming who I thought I needed to be that I forgot who I really was." Sarah reached out, her hand resting lightly on his. "I'm sorry, too, for not fighting harder for our friendship, for letting pride and fear stop me from looking for you when I needed help." "We can start over," Ethan suggested. "Not like we were before. We're different people now, but maybe we can build something new, something better, something more mature." Sarah agreed, built not just on shared memories, but on who we've become. A soft breeze rustled the leaves of a nearby tree, carrying the faint scent of rain. Sarah shivered slightly, and Ethan instinctively adjusted the blanket around her shoulders. "Some things never change," she said with a smile. "You were always protective like this, and you were always stubborn about admitting when you were cold," he teased gently. More quiet laughter, more shared memories. The night deepened, but neither felt the urge to end the moment. "The girls adore you," Sarah mentioned after a while. "Lily said you explain things the way I do, always asking questions that make her think." And Chloe, Ethan asked, curious. "Oh, she tries to hide it, but I saw her smile when you brought that new logic game. She keeps all the Post-its with your hints in a special little box." Ethan's heart warmed at the image. "They're truly special. Sarah, you've raised 2 extraordinary kids, and now they have you," Sarah said gently, "a friend who sees them, who understands them, who encourages them to dream." The first faint rays of dawn began to paint the horizon in shades of pink and gold. Sarah and Ethan watched the spectacle in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. "A new day," Sarah murmured. "A new beginning," Ethan added. Somewhere inside the apartment, an alarm began its soft chime. Soon the twins would be awake, and the day would begin. The small bubble of intimacy they had created on the balcony was about to dissolve, but something vital had been restored, something precious rediscovered. It wasn't just a reconciliation, it was a rebirth, a friendship that, like the rising sun, promised to illuminate new paths and new possibilities. The sun was fully risen now, but neither Ethan nor Sarah made any move to leave the balcony. The girls' breakfast could wait a few more minutes, and this moment felt too precious to break. "There's something I never told you," Ethan said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. His empty teacup spun nervously between his fingers. Sarah turned her full attention to him, sensing a subtle shift in his demeanor. "What is it?" Ethan took a deep breath, as if steeling himself. "Do you remember that graduation party, the one on the very last day of school?" "Of course," Sarah said, smiling at the memory. "It was an incredible night. Everyone was dancing, celebrating. I don't think I've ever seen that much champagne in one place. I had planned to tell you something that night," he continued, his gaze fixed on the waking city below. "Something I've been carrying with me ever since." Sarah leaned forward slightly, her curiosity piqued by the gravity in his voice. "Sarah, you were always more than a friend to me," Ethan confessed, finally meeting her eyes. "In our last years of college, I developed feelings for you that went beyond friendship." Sarah held her breath, stunned by the revelation. "That night at the graduation party, I decided to tell you everything," he continued. "I even bought flowers, but then I got that call about my dad being in the hospital, and everything changed by the time I could return to find you. You'd already left Eth," Sarah whispered, unconsciously using his old nickname. "I'm not telling you this now to complicate things," he rushed to clarify. "Our friendship is far too precious to me. But after we talked about the past, about regrets and choices, I felt I owed you the truth." Sarah was silent for a moment, processing. "Why didn't you ever say anything earlier?" "At first I was afraid of ruining our friendship then, as things got complicated with the company, and my dad, it always seemed like the timing wasn't right." "What about now?" Sarah asked softly. Ethan smiled, a kind, gentle expression. Now I want you to know that my support, my presence in your life, and the girls has nothing to do with old feelings or regrets. It's about who we are today and the friendship we're rebuilding." Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you for telling me," she said after a moment. "That honesty means a lot." "There's one more thing I need to say," Ethan went on, his voice growing more serious. "I want to help you and the girls in a more concrete way, not just with medical treatment, but with their future as well." "What do you mean?" she asked. "I want to set up an education fund for Lily and Chloe," he explained, "something that guarantees they can chase their dreams and study wherever they want, without financial limitations." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Ethan, it's not charity," he interrupted gently. "It's an investment in the future of two amazing girls who won my heart, and it's a way to make up for all the years I lost, all the moments I could have been there as a friend. You're already doing so much," Sarah began, but Ethan cut her off again. Sarah, listening to Lily talk about becoming an astronomer, hearing Chloe plan to create her own computer programs. "It reminds me of the two of us at Northwestern, dreaming big, believing we could change the world. I want to give them the chance to make those dreams come true." A single tear slid down Sarah's cheek. "Sometimes I wonder if I deserve all this. Your friendship, your support. You deserve this, and so much more," Ethan replied with conviction. "You're the strongest person. I know you raised two incredible daughters on your own, built a career, and never gave up on your dreams even when everything seemed impossible." The twins' alarm echoed once more from their room, a definitive signal that the day was truly beginning. "I need to make them breakfast," Sarah said, wiping her tears. "I'll do it," Ethan offered, standing up. "You still need to rest doctor's orders." Sarah smiled as she watched him head toward the kitchen with an easy familiarity. It felt surreal how naturally he fit into their lives, how his presence brought a sense of completeness she hadn't even realized was missing. "Eth," she called, making him pause in the doorway. "I also had feelings for you back in college." Ethan turned, a look of surprise on his face. "But I guess timing was never on our side," she continued softly. "And maybe that was for the best, what we have now. This friendship, this affection, is more precious than any romance could have been." A knowing smile lit up Ethan's face. "I completely agree." The sound of doors opening and small, hurried footsteps announced that Lily and Chloe were awake. Soon the apartment would be filled with their bright voices, with plans for the day, with the infectious energy only children possess. Uncle Lily's voice called from the kitchen. "Are you making pancakes with chocolate chips?" he replied, winking at Sarah before disappearing into the apartment. Sarah remained on the balcony for another moment, her heart overflowing with a complex mix of emotions. Life had a funny way of working out. What could have been a grand college love story had transformed into something just as special. A deep friendship, unwavering support, a chosen family. From inside, she could hear the girls' laughter mingling with Ethan's voice, the aroma of fresh coffee and pancakes beginning to fill the air. A certainty blossomed in her chest. Sometimes the universe knows exactly what we need, even if it takes a while to deliver. Rising, Sarah went to join her newfound, beloved family. The future, which had so recently seemed terrifying and uncertain, now shone with possibility. Not because someone had arrived to solve all her problems, but because she no longer had to face them alone. And maybe, she thought, watching Ethan help Chloe measure the precise amount of chocolate chips for the batter, this kind of love, the love born of friendship, care, and steadfast presence, was the most precious of all. The small living room was a sea of school catalogs, application forms, and neatly organized lists. Lily and Chloe sat on the rug, eagerly flipping through brochures for the prestigious Dalton School, while Sarah and Ethan sorted through the necessary paperwork for their transfer. "Look, Mom," Lily exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. "They have their own observatory and an astronomy club that goes on meteor watching campouts, and a fully equipped computer lab," Chloe added, failing to conceal her own thrill. They offer advanced programming and robotics classes. Sarah watched her daughters, a smile of pure emotion on her face. In the weeks since the decision to change schools was made, a new, vibrant energy had taken hold of them. "We'll need to buy new uniforms," Sarah remarked, glancing at a list. "And specific supplies for each subject. I've already taken care of everything," Ethan said gently. "The uniforms arrive tomorrow for them to try on, and the supplies are all set aside at the stationery store." Sarah began to protest. "It's a gift," he insisted kindly, "to celebrate a new beginning." Lily jumped up and ran to the bookshelf to grab her special notebook, the one where she meticulously planned her future. "I made a list of all the extracurricular activities I want to join. Can I be in both the science club and the astronomy club?" "Of course you can, sweetheart," Sarah said with a smile, "as long as you keep your grades up." "I made a spreadsheet too," Chloe said, holding up her tablet. "I organized all possible schedules so we can maximize extracurricular activities without hurting our regular studies." Ethan couldn't help but smile. She was so much like her mother at Northwestern. "And there's more news," he announced, capturing everyone's attention. "Carter Industries is launching a new mentorship program for young talents in technology and science. And well, I happen to know 2 perfect candidates." The twins' eyes widened in disbelief. "Does that mean we can visit the company labs?" Lily asked, barely able to contain her excitement. "And meet the programmers," Chloe added, her usual composure momentarily forgotten. "All that and more," Ethan confirmed. "You'll have access to state-of-the-art equipment, and you can join special projects, but only once you're fully settled into your new school," Sarah added quickly, giving Ethan a meaningful look. Of course he agreed. One step at a time. The afternoon flew by in a whirlwind of plans and excitement. Sarah, now much stronger thanks to her ongoing treatment, could share in her daughter's enthusiasm without becoming easily tired. "You know what I'm most excited about," Lily commented during dinner. "We'll get to have lunch with Mom some days, since her Carter Tower office is near our new school." It was true. Sarah was set to officially start as the company's new design director the following week, with her own office and a flexible schedule that allowed her to keep up with the girls. "And on the days she has meetings, Uncle Eth said he'd have lunch with us," Chloe added, her expression serious but her eyes shining. "As long as you help me with the newspaper crossword," Ethan teased, making them all laugh. Later that evening, after the twins were tucked into bed, Sarah and Ethan sat on the balcony, their new nightly tradition. "It's really happening, isn't it?" Sarah murmured, still a little in disbelief. "All this change. Are you scared?" Ethan asked softly. "A bit," she admitted. "But it's a good fear, you know. Like when you're about to start a big adventure, they'll do great," Ethan assured her. "They're brilliant, adaptable, and they have you," Sarah finished with a smile. "I've never seen Chloe open up to someone the way she has with you and Lily. I think she's already decided she'll work for Carter Industries' Space Research Division when she grows up." Ethan laughed. "She showed me her plans. They include building a lunar base by 2040, ambitious like her mom," Sarah teased. "And determined like you," he added. "They both are. It's amazing to see how they carry your best traits." A comfortable silence settled between them for a moment. "Thank you," Sarah finally said, "not just for the material help, but for bringing this light back into their lives. For a long time I was afraid that my limitations were stifling their dreams." "You never stifled anything," Ethan countered gently. "On the contrary, you taught them to dream under the toughest circumstances. I'm just giving them a little extra support now." Light footsteps caught their attention. Lily stood at the balcony door, clutching her dream notebook. "Can't sleep, sweetie?" Sarah asked. "I was thinking." Lily hesitated. "Can I show you something?" They nodded, and she opened her notebook to a specific page. It was a colorful drawing of 5 people: herself, Chloe, Sarah, Ethan, and Dr. Wilson. "This is our family," now she explained shyly. "It's different, but special." Chloe said it was silly to include Dr. Wilson, but she saved Mom, so she counts 2 right. Sarah pulled her daughter into a tight, fierce hug, silent tears slipping down her face. Ethan watched the scene, his heart full to bursting. "It's perfect, Lily," he said softly. "Absolutely perfect." Later, after they had finally settled Lily back in bed, Sarah found Chloe awake as well, meticulously organizing her new school supplies. "We need to sleep, kiddo," Sarah said gently. "Just one more minute," Chloe asked. "I want to make sure everything is perfect for the first day." Sarah sat on the edge of her daughter's bed. "Are you nervous?" Chloe hesitated, then gave a small nod. "What if I'm not good enough?" "Hey," Sarah said, pulling her into a hug. "You're more than good enough, and you're not alone in this adventure. Remember?" As if on cue, Ethan appeared in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "I thought someone might need these." He smiled, handing them to mother and daughter. Chloe's shy smile spoke volumes. There, in that simple, cozy bedroom, Sarah felt a certainty grow in her heart. No matter what the future held, they would face it together, not as a traditional family, but as a family chosen by the heart, united by love, mutual care, and the shared determination to build something special. "Come live in the mansion with me." Ethan's proposal hung in the air of the small living room, startling in its simplicity. Sarah, who had been organizing some papers at the table, froze. The twins, playing on the rug, looked up with wide, curious eyes. Sarah began, her voice hesitant. "Hear me out before you say no," he asked, leaning forward in his chair. "First, you'd never have to worry about rent again. You could use that money for other things the girls need. Second, the mansion is much closer to their new school and your new office at the company." Sarah bit her lip, her mind racing. "But that's a lot, Eth. It's your house. It's way too big for just me," he finished. "I have 12 bedrooms, Sarah 12, and I only use 1. It makes so much more sense to fill that place with life and laughter." "Is there a library?" Lily asked timidly, her curiosity overriding her shyness. Ethan smiled. "A huge 1-floor-to-ceiling, and there's a perfect spot on the rooftop where we could set up a professional telescope." Lily's eyes sparkled. He continued, turning his gaze to Chloe. "There's a fully equipped tech lab in the basement with the latest programming and robotics equipment." Chloe tried to maintain her neutral expression, but Sarah could see the flicker of interest in her eyes. "Besides," Ethan said, turning back to Sarah, "Dr. Wilson mentioned in the last appointment how crucial a good environment is for your full recovery. The mansion has a filtered air system and gardens where you can walk." Sarah looked at her daughters, who were watching her with unconcealed hope. It was true, their small apartment, though filled with love and memories, was becoming cramped. "Wouldn't it feel weird," she finally asked, "us invading your space like that?" Ethan laughed softly. "Sarah, you're already my family. The only weird thing is keeping us apart when there's so much space going unused." A week later, moving trucks were parked outside the Carter mansion. Its imposing facade on Chicago's Gold Coast welcomed its new residents. Sarah, still feeling slightly dazed, watched as the twins raced through the vast corridors, exploring every corner of their new home. "This room has a bay window," Lily shouted from the second floor. "I can see all the stars from here, and this one has a built-in desk that's perfect for my computer." Chloe's voice echoed from another room. Settling in was surprisingly seamless. Ethan had thought of every detail to make them feel at home. The library, in addition to its thousands of books, now featured a dedicated workstation for Sarah, complete with the latest design software. An adjacent art studio, flooded with natural light and stocked with every material imaginable, was set up for the girls' creative pursuits. On the rooftop, as promised, a professional telescope awaited Lily's explorations. Mornings took on a new, comfortable rhythm. Ethan often made breakfast while Sarah helped the twins get ready. The drive to school, once a rushed ordeal, became a pleasant time for conversation. "Remember, you have that after-school club meeting today," Sarah reminded them one morning, straightening Chloe's tie. Uncle Eth's picking us up, Lily chimed in, excited for her first astronomy club activity. Sarah's treatment continued to show remarkable progress. Dr. Wilson noted significant improvements at every checkup, attributing a large part of Sarah's recovery to the mansion's stress-free, healthier environment. Nights became especially magical. After dinner, while the twins did their homework in the library, Sarah and Ethan continued their tradition of chatting on the now enclosed balcony, overlooking the meticulously tended gardens. The big news came on a crisp fall afternoon. Sarah emerged from Dr. Wilson's office with tears of pure joy in her eyes. "It's over," she announced to Ethan, who was waiting in the lobby. "The treatment is officially done. I'm cured." The twins, who had been secretly plotting, organized a surprise celebration in the library. The vast room was adorned with fairy lights, flowers, and a timeline of photos documenting Sarah's journey back to health. "And this," Lily announced, unveiling a large covered frame, "is our present." It was a collaborative painting. Lily had painted a swirling, starry sky, Chloe had created a complex geometric pattern, and together they had depicted their family in a unique style that blended realism and abstraction. "We'll hang it in the entryway," Chloe explained, "so everyone knows this is a house of love and healing." Sarah hugged her daughters, overwhelmed with emotion. Ethan watched the scene, his heart full, marveling at how his life had been transformed in just a few months. "Thank you," Sarah said later, when they were alone on the balcony, "for everything, for giving us a home, for giving me a second chance. You did the same for me," Ethan answered gently. "You gave me a family." The Carter mansion, once a symbol of solitary success, had become a true home. Not because of its impressive architecture or valuable furnishings, but because of the love that now filled every room, every corner, every shared moment. It was a new beginning for all of them. For Sarah, who had overcome not just illness, but her fear of accepting help. For the twins, who could now dream without limits. And for Ethan, who had discovered that true success wasn't measured in business conquests, but in the daily smiles of three people who had turned his house into a loving home. The mansion's garden was particularly beautiful that spring afternoon. Sarah watched from her studio window as the twins helped Ethan plant new flowers. A subtle change had been in the air for weeks, a quiet shift she'd noticed ever since she was declared fully recovered. It wasn't just the way her heart fluttered when Ethan smiled, or how she found herself watching him a little too often. It was deeper, a silent feeling growing like the flowers they were now planting. The gentle way he interacted with the girls, the way he anticipated her needs, the way their gazes met across a room, it all stirred emotions she could no longer dismiss as simple friendship. Mom Lily called from the garden, waving excitedly. "Come see what we planted." Sarah smiled and went downstairs. The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow on everything, and when Ethan helped her kneel beside the flower bed, the warmth of his hand sent a familiar spark through her, a spark she now recognized as something more. "They're blue roses," Ethan explained, his eyes meeting hers. "They're as rare as they are special. Some say they represent the impossible becoming possible." The moment was broken by Chloe, who came running over with her tablet, her eyes shining. "Look, I was accepted into the advanced computing program. They loved my project on using AI in education." The celebration that followed was typical of the new family they had become. Martha, the housekeeper, who was now an essential part of their lives, prepared a special dinner with all of Chloe's favorite foods. Lily gave an impromptu presentation on how her sister's algorithms could be applied to stellar mapping. Throughout dinner, Sarah couldn't help but notice how right it all felt. The way Ethan knew exactly how Lily liked her mashed potatoes, how he anticipated Chloe's request for more juice, how his hand occasionally brushed against hers under the table. When the girls finally went to bed, Sarah and Ethan met on their balcony. The nightly ritual had become precious, a quiet space just for them. "Eth," she began, her heart pounding, feeling the time for honesty had come. "I need to tell you something, but before she could continue, he gently placed a finger on her lips. "I have something to say, too." He smiled, pulling a small box from his pocket. The crescent moon and star necklace rested inside, fully restored, its beauty enhanced. "I had it fixed up," Ethan explained gently. "Look closer." Sarah took the necklace with trembling hands. Around the original sapphire, tiny diamonds formed 2 new constellations. "They're from the dates the girls were born," she whispered, recognizing the patterns of Gemini and Cassiopeia. "The Queen of the Stars, like Lily always says," Ethan completed. "I thought it fitting since you're the queen of their hearts and of mine." Jennifer felt the tears forming. "Sarah," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "in the last few months, you and the girls have brought more life and joy into this house than I could have ever imagined. What started as friendship grew into something much deeper." He paused, taking her hands in his. "Somewhere between nights of studying with the girls, chaotic breakfasts, medical appointments, and our chats here on this balcony, I fell in love with you, not just for what you mean to the girls, but for who you are. Strong, determined, caring. I love you," he continued, his eyes locked on hers. "I love our girls, and I want to make official what we already are. At heart, a family." Tears streamed freely down Sarah's face as she answered, "I love you too, Eth. I think I always have, even when I didn't realize it. You haven't just given us a home. You gave us hope, a future love." The wedding took place 3 months later, a small, intimate ceremony in the mansion gardens. Lily and Chloe, now officially Carters, were the flower girls, wearing sky-blue dresses that matched the roses they had planted. "It's really happening," Lily whispered to Chloe as they adjusted their mother's veil. "We're officially a family now." "Technically, we already were a family," Chloe answered with her usual logic, though her eyes were brimming with tears. "This is just making it official." The moon and star necklace gleamed on Sarah's neck as she walked toward Ethan, a spontaneous moment where the twins ran to join them before the ceremony was over, perfectly capturing the essence of their unique family. The following months were a cascade of joy and achievement. Sarah, now thriving, took the helm as creative director at Carter Industries, launching a series of innovative projects that blended technology and design in revolutionary ways. Lily was accepted into a special program at the Adler Planetarium, where her theories on star patterns caught the attention of renowned astronomers. Chloe, taking after her mother, developed her first commercial app, an educational game for children with learning difficulties. One special night, exactly a year after they had moved into the mansion, the family gathered in the garden for a picnic under the stars, the telescope ready for another evening of exploration. "Remember when we tried to sell the necklace?" Lily asked from her mother's lap. "How could we forget?" Chloe replied, tweaking the settings on her new star mapping app. "That was the day our lives changed." Sarah touched the necklace, feeling the comforting weight of its history. "Sometimes the happiest endings begin in the hardest moments," she reflected. "That day when you went out alone to try to help me, I was so scared and so worried, but the universe knew what it was doing. That necklace wasn't just a piece of jewelry," Ethan added, settling beside her. "It was a link of destiny." "Dad's getting romantic again," Chloe teased, though she smiled as she said the word Dad, a title that had come naturally just weeks after the wedding. The Carter Mansion, once a monument to lonely success, now pulsed with life and love. Hallways that once echoed with solitary footsteps were filled with laughter, music, and the occasional controlled explosion from Lily's science experiments. The library, once a silent sanctuary, was now a hub of family activity. The necklace, a former symbol of desperation, was now a talisman of unity and hope. At night, after the twins were asleep, Sarah and Ethan still kept their balcony ritual, their words now punctuated by soft kisses and plans for a future that seemed infinitely bright. "You know what I love most about our story?" Ethan asked one night, his gaze on the crescent moon above. What Sarah asked. "That every decision, every tough moment, Every choice brought us right where we were meant to be together. Sarah smiled, her fingers tracing the pendant at her neck, where her daughter's constellations now shone alongside the original sapphire. In its infinite wisdom, the universe had woven a perfect tapestry, uniting them not just as a couple, but as a family. In the Carter mansion, once a home to solitude, the most beautiful love story had blossomed. A story not just between a man and a woman, but among people who chose to become a family, who turned pain into hope, and who discovered that the greatest treasures are made not of gold or jewels, but of shared moments, fulfilled dreams, and unconditional love. The moon and star necklace, a silent witness to their extraordinary journey, would continue to shimmer, holding in its sapphire not just the reflection of the stars, but the enduring light of a family that had finally found its way home. A home built not of bricks and mortar, but of love, trust, and the certainty that some bonds are truly written in the stars.